My name's Greg, and I am an alcoholic. It looks like I'm the only one here, so I've got a 90-minute speech prepared. I like to start off every time I speak with a little thing I do is I'm forever grateful to Serenity Place of Manchester, New Hampshire, and my favorite ex-wife for saving my life. And I do that because I need to remember where I came from and how I got to where I am today. It's just like when we introduce ourselves, we always identify ourselves as an alcoholic. When I first got to AA, I said, what the hell are we doing that for? Don't we know we're alcoholics? Yeah, we do. But we don't want to forget. If we forget what we are, then our disease is going to tell us that we're all okay. And none of us are all okay. I'll qualify myself a little bit. I was a daily drinker for 41 years. I've tried a couple of times to remember if there was a single day that I did not have at least one drink, and I can't come up with that day. When I was younger, it was at least one beer on a slow day. We used to measure things. I used to go help. Somebody asked me to go help them do something in their house, and they'd always say, it'll only take a few beers. We used to measure time in beers. And of course, as time went on and the disease progressed, it was, I couldn't remember a day that I didn't have at least 3 glasses of wine. Or 3 screwdrivers. And then as things progressed even more, the count would be in bottles and not glasses. I had what was called a low bottom. I can remember when I first got to AA, and I'm sure there's some smart people in this room. I considered myself a smart person, and I was going to overcome this thing. Because I'm better than that. But the harder you try and the more you think you can beat this thing, the harder it fights back and the more you lose. Somebody once told me early on in my recovery, you need to surrender to win. One of the first things told to me that didn't make sense. The other one that didn't make sense was, the further you get away from your last drink, the closer you get to your next one. And I'm like, what are you telling me? I'm going to pick up at some point? Is that what you're telling me? Well, you will if you don't forget. Or if you do forget. Because you have to remember where you came from. Because you're sure than shit going to go back there if you pick up. So, my favorite ex-wife, you can only have a favorite if you have more than one. I had lost my job after 30 years, and think about that for a minute. That's how bad it got. I was successful. I traveled the world, literally. I was on a plane almost every week, and when you fly as much as that, you reach the platinum and diamond levels and whatever. You're always at first class. You get on the plane in Logan or Manchester, New Hampshire at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they say, Greg, what would you like to drink? While everybody's fighting with their luggage, you're being served a screwdriver. And then, of course, you get up in the air, and it's 2 or 3 more until you hit your either connecting flight or your destination. And the clubs in all the airports were free. And they were all open bar, most of them self-serve. Then you get on your connecting flight and you get to your destination, and I can't tell you how many times I woke up and I had to look at the phone to see where the hell I was. So it got pretty bad. I was on company time at one point and got arrested yet again, and that was the straw that broke their back, and that was the end of that. Started flipping houses, and I was flipping a house not too far from here up in New Ipswich, in the middle of the woods. I was in the middle of nowhere. Funny thing, I am pretty much by myself. I hired a couple of contractors to do the things I didn't want to do, like the roof and paint the outside of the house. I did everything else. Unbeknownst to me, both of those contracts were in the program. Contractors, they were in the program. Tried to 12-step me. Of course, I didn't realize that until I learned what the 12-step was. I got arrested one more time in New Ipswich. I was passed out at the sub shop in the parking lot, and the employees decided to call the cops and say, hey, there's a guy sleeping in the parking lot. And that was the straw that broke my wife's back. So she showed up at the house with divorce papers. And she's handing me the divorce papers, and she says, Greg, you're an alcoholic. You need to admit you're an alcoholic, and you need to get help. Sign here. She had been going Al-Anon behind my back. So I looked at her, and in my little mind, I thought if I admitted that I was an alcoholic and tell her that I'd go get help, that she would pull the divorce papers back. And at 59 years old, after drinking every day for 41 years, knowing I was an alcoholic, I finally admitted out loud to another human being, yes, I'm an alcoholic. And yes, I'll go get help. That was the moment I started my recovery. It was in October of 2014. Because I didn't realize it at that point, but subconsciously I surrendered. Because when I said that to her, the weight of the world came off my shoulders. I'll never forget it. She didn't take the divorce papers back, which is why I call her my favorite ex-wife. So, this was in and around our anniversary. We got married in October. So I tried to quit drinking. I needed to finish remodeling the house, rehabbing the house, and I'm trying to quit drinking. And I get this brand new refrigerator in the kitchen. Really nice ice maker on it. Nice spot for the vodka in the freezer. The harder I tried to quit drinking, the more I thought about my alcohol, the more I drank. For the life of me, I could not stop. I can remember screaming at the top of my lungs at God, please help me to stop drinking. I tossed God out of my life when I was 16 years old. In my early 20s, I actually tried to convince myself and others that there was no God. I can remember I was about 23, 24 years old. There was an island in the South China Sea somewhere, maybe near Indonesia, I can't remember. Tsunami came by and wiped out about 3,000 people off the island. Women, children, puppies, kittens. See, there's no God. How could a God allow these innocent people to be just wiped off the face of the earth? There was a talk show host at the time out of Boston, Gene Burns. He would come on at noontime, and he was an atheist. And he brought up that same story. That's where I heard of him. And said the same thing I did. How could there be this all-loving God? And that's the way I kind of lived my life until I got married to my favorite ex-wife. She's a God-loving person. She loves Jesus. He invited me to church on Sundays. And the first time, I remember, I'll never forget it, the first time I walked into church, I was waiting for the lightning bolt to come down and take me away. And no, that didn't happen. So deep down inside, I knew that there was something out there that was more powerful than I was. And I started screaming at it. I finally finished the house. I closed on December 31st, and on New Year's Eve I became homeless because my wife had kicked me out. And now I'm in a Motel 6 in Nashua. After my wife had given me the papers in October, and I told her that I wanted to get help, she called around and looking for a rehab that would take a 59-year-old drunk. And she got me on the waiting list at Serenity Place in Manchester, New Hampshire. They've since gone out of business, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. I had to make my bed check call every day. If anybody who's ever been on a waiting list for rehab, you have to make a bed check call every day. If you fail to make a call, then your name gets put at the bottom of the list, and you start over. I didn't fail to make a call on any day. Now it's January, and I'm still waiting for a bed to open up. And I'm all alone in a motel. My favorite ex-wife would stop by and visit once in a while, check on me. We'd talk on the phone. Eventually, tried to drink myself to death, and pretty much what happened. On January 23rd, it was a Friday, 2015. I get up in the morning and I had about that much left in a vodka, and I said, that ain't gonna last too long. Grabbed a 20 off the bureau and walked down to the liquor store. My vodka's on sale. My vodka choice, which used to be up here, now down here, was on sale for $10.59. Normal price is $12.59. And I said to myself, 10 and 10 is 20, and I fished, and I found up enough change to buy 2 bottles, and I did. Saturday morning, I made my bed check call. I don't remember it. I was a blackout drinker. I had been doing this since October. And the way it goes is you make the call and you get the recording, the machine, and you go, "This is Greg, making my bed check call." Did that every day. Nobody ever called me back. I found out later that somebody did call me back that morning. I have no idea what they said. The next thing I did was text to my boys, "I need help." I was born and raised in Massachusetts, and got married in Massachusetts to my first wife. Had a kid, and then Dukakis happened, and we escaped to New Hampshire. And I raised my family in Dover. And my 2 boys lived in that area. And they knew where I was, so they got together, got into one vehicle and came down to get me. And they decided to take me to Wentworth Douglas Hospital in Dover. They showed up, I was unresponsive. They got the manager to let them in. They grabbed me and my stuff and took off. They had no idea how close to death I was. But they wanted me in Dover to be close to them. They didn't know what was wrong with me. My phone bill told me that I made my bed check call at 8:10 that morning, and I had an incoming call from Serenity Place at 8:12 that lasted for 12 minutes. And then my phone told me I texted my boys somewhere around 8:25, somewhere in there. I was admitted at 1:30 in the afternoon. My blood alcohol content at that point was 0.3125. And I hadn't had a drink in hours. Doctor came up to my room after before I left and said he told me he'd never seen anybody with a blood alcohol that high and still be breathing. But that's where I was. For those of you that believe in a higher power, I call my higher power God. I've heard on more than one occasion that God works through others to help us. And all that screaming and hollering I did, somehow, somebody on the other end of that phone at Serenity Place decided it was a good idea to call me after not doing that for 4 months, whatever it was. Don't know what he said, but it got me to do something. My blood alcohol level, I was admitted on Saturday the 25th. The 24th, and Saturday the 25th was, or Sunday the 25th I woke up. That was the first full day. I went without a drink, only because they wouldn't give me one. I asked. It's insane. It really is. My blood alcohol level went to 0 Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday they released me and I'm back at the motel. All by myself. My favorite ex-wife, her name is Janet. Janet knew that I was back at the hotel. I don't know how women can do this, but I don't care how far away you are, but if you call a woman, she can smell the alcohol all the way through the phone. And she was no exception. She could always tell when I've had a drink. It's just, I don't know how she did it, but she could tell. And that kept me away from a drink during the day. I was scared to death I was going to pick up a drink. Absolutely scared to death. And I told her that. I don't want to pick up a drink. She would go to work and she'd get home to the house that I used to live in, eat her dinner, and then she'd pick up the phone and she would call me. And we would put the same TV station on and we would watch TV together until we passed out, fell asleep or whatever. And she did that for 3 weeks. On February 23rd, a bed opened up at Serenity Place. After my intake, the detox center, the detox part of Serenity Place is co-ed. After my intake, I went into the common area and I'm sitting there. On the other side of the room is this girl, young blonde girl, curled up in a ball, detoxing from heroin. And she's pregnant. And then I realized why it took so long for a 59-year-old drunk to get a bed in Manchester, New Hampshire. Because there's all these young kids hooked on heroin, pregnant or otherwise. And they certainly took priority over me, and I understand that. And I looked at her like, I have to do something. What can I do to help this poor young girl? Anyway, we had 9 group meetings a day in between smoke breaks. And I didn't smoke, But the whole group would have to go outside and smoke, and then we'd all come back in. And we'd have these 9 group meetings. And here I am, the oldest person in the room, and I'm listening to these young heroin addicts tell my story. And I'm like, what? That's exactly what I'm going through. That's exactly what I went through. You're absolutely right. Just like me. And I knew nothing about drugs. I never took a drug in my life. Thank God for that. If I took drugs like I drank, I never would have made it. Drugs wasn't a part of the people I lived around. Conference rooms and things like that. Plenty of martinis, if you want. Scotch on the rocks. Maybe a cigar here and there, but no drugs. And I was just amazed, and I spent 45 days in detox. That was under the Serenity umbrella. There was the female transitional living facility was in that building. I became the cook there. And then I got transferred to Terrell House, which is the men's transitional living facility, where I became the cook there as well. And the same thing at Terrell House, all these young men, 99% of them heroin addicts, and they're all young. The difference between alcohol and heroin is the time it takes to reach bottom. That's about it. And you know, you can do all the, and we've all done this, we've all compared ourselves to the next guy or the next gal, right? And you do it in 2 different ways. You know, he was never as drunk as I was. Or, I was never as drunk as this guy. Right? We do that. But everybody's got a different bottom. Some of us find the trap door. And I want to thank you people that do that, by the way. You make it into the halls, and then you get some sobriety, you think you're cured, you go back out there. And but for the grace of God, you make it back in here to tell us how wonderful it was. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for sharing that experience with us. It's another thing that keeps me away from picking up. I spent 18 months in Terrell House, partly because I had no place to go. I went in there homeless and without a place to go. They wouldn't let me out. And then finally, my favorite ex-wife said, "I'll take him back temporarily," and she did. The house that we lived in was just too much for her to maintain. Even sitting on a John Deere, it would take over an hour just to cut the grass. She didn't need the 30 by 30 garage. She didn't need all the extra bedrooms. We decided that she was going to sell the house, and I rehabbed my old house, which I did happily. 2 new bathrooms, all new floors throughout, brand new windows throughout. Paint, some cosmetic work. She sold it and bought a condo in Merrimack, and I moved to Hillsborough. That's why I'm here from Hillsborough. Her and I are best friends. I talk to my ex-wife every day, sometimes more than once a day. We're on a bowling team now. Our team name is the X's. We came in second in our summer league, and we're currently in first place in the fall league, and having a blast. There isn't a kinder, gentler, more caring person in this world than my favorite ex-wife, Janet. What I put her through. And she sometimes reminds me, which is probably why we don't sleep under the same roof. But I owe my life to her. She caused me to hit bottom because without her handing me those divorce papers, I never would have admitted on my own that I was an alcoholic. And without getting me on a waiting list, I never would have found a rehab place on my own. And being alone in a motel without her babysitting me over the phone, I most certainly would have picked up. And for all the people at Serenity Place that helped me, I'm forever grateful to them as well. So while I was at Terrell House, there was this meeting. It's a private meeting. It's not on the books. They call them blackout meetings. There's several of those in the Manchester area. And this one meeting is held in a lawyer's office. Usually about 12 guys there, or actually men and women. 12 people there. Mostly men though. Sometimes 15 on a Good Friday night. Wasn't very formal. One of us would recite the preamble, which I can still do today. And these are all old timers. And I'm kind of an old timer too, only I'm the new guy. So they grabbed a hold of me and said, Greg, we'll take care of you. And I could sit at that conference table and look across the table, be 4 or 5 guys on the other side of the table, and I could add up about 200 years of sobriety. When I moved, my wife took me back. We lived in Hudson, and I had lost my license after that last arrest for 4.5 years, so I had no way to get around. So I wasn't going to meetings while I was in Hudson. And then COVID hit, and I got my license back and moved to Hillsborough, but all the meetings were shut down. To make a long story short, I hadn't been to this Friday night meeting in a couple of years. While I was at Terrell House, I got a call from my doctor who I had just visited on July 4th. I was walking down Elm Street on a hot day. My phone rings and it's my doctor. Greg, you have cancer. You need to get a hold of a surgeon immediately. Call my office on Monday. Click. And I'm like, what? Now, if anybody of you are familiar with Manchester, downtown, it's in the summertime, it's one outdoor bar after another. I just hung up the phone, and the first thought that's going through my mind is, you know, I've been drinking for 41 years. I get cancer. I'm gonna die. And I gotta walk all the way up to the north end of Elm Street to get to Terrell House, and I'm walking by bar after bar. Little orange-colored drink there. People having a good time over there. Look at that bottle of Coors Light with the sweat just glistening off the side. And I am like really close. I'm like, what am I thinking about here? And then it hit me. I remember this gal that came to our meeting in Terrell House around March of that year. It's 2015 now. I was early in my recovery. And she walked into our meeting and she's got these bandaged hands. She's got gauze wrapped around her hands. She looked like a very pretty Sylvester Stallone. I surmised she was our speaker because I hadn't seen her before, and certainly she was. She informs us that she has this rare form of cancer, and she had just left her first chemotherapy treatment and made the commitment to our meeting. I don't remember much about what she said. I mean, she was a mom, she was a wife, she was a sister, she was an aunt, she was a daughter. She's all these wonderful things, and she is a horrific drunk. I mean, you want to talk about, there was at least 2 occasions where you could look around the room and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Her story was tremendous. And towards the end of her talk, she raised her hands and she says, now I know why God took away the alcohol from me so I could deal with this. And as I'm walking down Elm Street thinking about picking up a beer, that thought came to my mind, what she had said. And I had to agree with her. And I immediately picked up my meeting attendance. One of the first meetings I went to was this meeting with all these old guys in there, and I told them I had cancer. And I'm really close to saying F it, you know? Like, why bother? Because it's hard, right? You guys that get your 24-hour checks? Congratulations, man. Keep getting them. I got my 7-year medallion in my pocket. My favorite ex-wife gave me my first medallion at Manchester Originals Group in front of 150 people. She's like, what? And you'll do okay, honey. And she has given me every medallion since. And I'm not going to break that tradition. She enjoys doing it, and I can't think of another person on this planet that I'd rather get presented with my medallion. So I get to this meeting, and these guys let me just pour my guts out all over the table. And when I was done, there was a couple of stories about these guys had going through similar experiences, and they were able to get me through that. On July 7th, I called my mom. She lives in Florida, 86 years old, on her birthday on July 7th. On July 16th, she called me on my 67th birthday, on July 16th, and we had a great talk. She just got admitted into the hospital again that week, and she had fallen down again. My sister lives nearby, and my sister told me she just can't take care of herself anymore. And so I'm talking to her on the phone, and she's really pissed. She says, Craig, they don't have a wristband on me. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in the hospital. yeah, you can, Mom. They always put a wristband on you. And I've been here for 2 days, and nobody's put a wristband on me. They don't know who I am. I said, Mom, if you check for a toe tag. That's just the way I am. And we had a belly laugh. My mom was a hot shit. She actually did stand-up comedy for a while she could still stand up. July 31st, my phone rang. It was my sister. My mom had passed. On August 2nd, my new home group, Hillsborough Originals, I went to that meeting, and when the chairperson said, does anybody have a burning desire? And I raised my hand. And they let me spill my guts out all over that place. And after the meeting, I got about 20 hugs. Nothing better on this planet than experiencing the love from the people in this program. Don't ever forget that. I don't care where you are. You can go to any AA meeting in the world, and you will be loved. And that Friday, I decided to take the 45-minute drive down to my old meeting to see who was still there. And every one of those old timers but one was still there. And again, they let me spill my guts out all over that table. And I said to Jim, I said to one of the guys, I says, "Where's Jim? He's still around. He doesn't make it to the Friday night meeting much, but he still does the Over Easy group on Saturday morning." So last Saturday, I got in my truck and I made the 45-minute drive down to Blake's on South Main Street in Manchester, and I walked in. And Jim looked at me and you would have thought he was looking at a ghost. And he says to me, he says, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." He says, "You stay sober?" I said, "I got my 7th-year medallion in my pocket." And he reached into his pocket and he pulled his medallion out and he put it in my hand, and I looked at it. And he says, "I'm getting a new one next week." And I'm looking at a 49-year-old medallion. I'm going to that meeting tomorrow to be there when Jim gets his 50-year medallion. When I first went to that old timers meeting and they're telling me how many years they got, and this guy's got 35, and this guy's got 40, and I'm like, 40 years? I gotta go to meetings for 40 years? Are you shitting me? I feel good already. Yeah, you do. And you'll like it. There isn't a place on this planet I'd rather be than at an AA meeting. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous is a way of life. You've ever heard of that acronym? It's AWOL. An AWOL is the intense study of the 12 steps. If you go through the 12 steps as they're laid out in the big book, with another human being that's gone through the 12 steps as they're laid out in the big book, it will change your entire outlook on life. When I first read the 12 steps, they're hanging up on the wall, Serenity Place, and it says you'll be returned to sanity, and I'm saying, what is that? I'm not sane. And somebody reminded me, because I used to tell this story, in 2014 I bought a brand new GMC to go flip that house. 2015 GMC, and I opened the hood and there's all this room under the hood. And my wife had just busted me for picking up my water bottle, and she took a sip and it wasn't water. Anyway, so that gig was up, and being an engineer, I'm looking around and all kinds of room under this hood, so I bought an extra windshield washer bottle. Yeah. Mounted it on the firewall, ran the hose inside the truck, and put a little switch in there. And the truck got repossessed. Somebody's driving around with an auction they may not know about. But that's insanity. Okay? I thought I was pretty smart. I'm a talented guy. But that's insane. That's insane behavior, okay? And then the 12th step, where it arrogantly, presumptuously says, after having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I'm like, are you kidding me? No, they're not kidding you. You go through the steps the way they laid out in the big book with somebody that's gone through the steps as they laid out in the big book, you will have a spiritual awakening. and it will change your life. And you're here because you want to change your life. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. This means as much to me as I hope it means to you. Thank you very much.